I'm Little Gem. You've probably seen my Chica around, so today I'm going to show you how I made Glamrock Freddy's head. The main two ingredients that you're going to need, the first one being PLA. You can print in other types of filament, however I recommend if you're a beginner to use this one as it is the easiest to use, I think it's the cheapest and it's definitely the most forgiving. So that's PLA filament. And then a really strong type of glue. My favourite is the 2-part epoxy glue. I don't have a specific brand I really like, however in the UK this is the easiest to find. And then I think in America I've seen a lot of fellow crafters favourite this kind of glue. It's called E6000 Plus. But I haven't really used this much so I can't vouch for it, but 2-part epoxy glue is a very strong glue. Okay, so for those of you who are watching currently and thinking I don't have a 3D printer, that's okay, let me know in the comments and I'm going to plan on doing a film version which you can do by hand. But for those of you who want to get into 3D printing, the types of printers I use are just normal FDM printers. I've got the Ender 3 here and then the Ender 3 Plus. In terms of this project, you really only need about the same size as an Ender 3, nothing fancy, it's really simple. And a little bit about the printing settings. For my FDM prints, I tend to use Cura. So when I'm using PLA, it's almost always Cura. And on the Cura settings, I have favoured 2 options. One is keeping it below 25% infill. I would definitely keep it between 15 and 25 for anything that's not hollow. And for the files that I have included that are hollow, I would recommend anywhere between 50% and 100% infill just to keep that strength. The reason I recommend this is because I have made parts that are hollow so that it A, saves money, but more importantly it saves weight. And the same going for the infill size on the things that aren't hollow. I recommend keeping it between 15 and 25 just because it keeps costs and weight down. Which is important because of course it's going to be on your head. So firstly I just want to say that I made this helmet to fit my head, but I made it a tiny bit bigger so that hopefully it would fit more of an average size head. But what I want to point out is with the electronics, it only just fits me. Without the electronics, it is way too big for me. So depending on how you want to do this head or depending on how the size. But a quick tip is to slice the model using your slicing program and just print what is essentially a ring and then just see if it fits over your head okay. This was my first test. I realized it was way too big. Like this is the bottom of Freddy's jaw here and this would be far too large for my head. So I just changed the percentage for all the files until I got the correct one. This is just a hollow piece of PLA. I haven't even glued it, I've just taped it together. So that's just a quick tip on sizing, but yeah, maybe this will fit you. Maybe you just want it as a prop, but if you're adventurous enough to try and size it, I would recommend just slicing about 10mm of the jaw and printing it out and seeing if it fits. Okay, so you start by printing each piece one by one, making sure that you aren't in the room while this is printing, just because it's not good for you. Then you use your choice of glue to glue the parts together. Sometimes I like to mask and tape them all together just to get an idea of how to glue them before I glue them. Then, as you can see, I'm testing it here, but you guys won't actually have attached your jaw yet. This was me just experimenting. I use car body filler, some places it's called Bonbo, but you can use wood glue because this stuff is carcinogenic, so look out for this symbol guys. This means it's known to cause cancer and you need a mask and a well ventilated area. But then yeah, whether you're using that or wood glue, you just want to apply it to the deep seams. Then once it's dry you can begin sanding it. I actually use a range of different types of sandpaper, starting from a low 60 up to a high 300 sometimes. You don't need to use a mechanical tool to do this, you can hand sand. In fact, I actually do most of mine by hand sanding, but I tend to do the seams with a hand sander, I don't know its actual name. Then I start applying either a thick primer, or in this case it's another car body filler, but in spray form. Again, this stuff is really bad for you, so only do it outside and make sure you use full PPE. Then for this model I've decided to not include a hole, just in case you decided to use a different way of attaching his hat. But for my way of doing it, I just drilled 2 holes into the center of each part and then attached a wooden dowel, and then I can choose to use Velcro to make it so I can take it off, or just glue it down. If you do use a dowel, make sure you sand the edges so that it's not going to catch you in some dangerous way. I handmade my springs by just twisting a garden wire around my spare dowel I had lying around, but you can probably pre-purchase springs, but I couldn't find any in this thickness. And then I just inserted those, making sure they looked relatively even, and then hot glued them in place. Afterwards, to attach the spring ears, I used some PVC and drilled 2 holes in for each spring on each side. Again, you can use cardboard, EVA foam, or you could even design and 3D print a part to go in here. Then for the headpiece, this part's rather important. I made a prototype out of EVA foam, and then I transferred it over to Crossstitch board, I think that's its name, but the firm type. Then I simply just copied over my EVA foam version to this stuff. Once I made sure all the edges weren't sharp anymore, I just hot glued them in place. The reason I like to use this cross stitch stuff is because it's quite easy to add holes and attach different types of things on it. I also added this tiny bit of upholstery foam support to my head, just for comfort reasons, but it's totally optional. And then briefly just to show you how I did my jaw, because I changed it so many times, and your file will look different because again I perfected it, but here where I'm pointing I've just attached a bolt through it, and that way it can swing on its axes. I also then later attached a upholstery foam chin just so that it can press against my chin, but there are so many different ways you can do this, guys. I just wanted to make this one easier so that you guys don't have to spend ages doing fittings.
Do for part 2, but for now guys, please like and subscribe. It really motivates me to bring you guys more videos, and I can show you how to make cool things like Freddy.